Hello, my name is Jim Steed, and today I'm going to talk to you briefly about the use of mindfulness, walking meditation, and guided imagery in self-help activities for people facing Parkinson's, a very serious disease that some people think is uncurable, at least at this point. Um, I'm not particularly qualified in Parkinson's. It's just that I have a broad and comprehensive knowledge from several different fields and a sworn dedication to reduce suffering, the cause of suffering, and the cause of suffering in as many people as I can in this lifetime. I'm a retired university professor. Actually, I'm quite well known. I'm a quite well known editor in the field of medical research. I've been doing that for over 30 years and have edited and helped write over 5,000 medical papers. Um, and I have 30 years experience in mind-body approaches to health and well-being. I'm fully trained and not only my university subjects, but also Ericksonian hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming. There was a book called Trances People Live, which I studied very early on and totally agreed with. And that author in that book said that actually we were living in a hypnotic state. We were living in trance states. And the only time that we did wake up was when we entered a meditative state and began to observe ourselves objectively. This was truly waking up. Okay. Also, I'm trained in creative visualization, which is a kind of waking hypnosis or a waking imaginative state. And of course, mindful meditation with my interest in Buddhism. For many people living with Parkinson's disease, one of the hardest part is feeling like their body no longer listens to them. Movements become slow, stiff, and shaky. And even the simple task like walking across the room or tying your shoe or buttoning a button or speaking clearly can take much more energy and concentration than it did before, much more time too. Even when the mind is alert and clear, the body often refuses to cooperate. This disconnect can be exhausting, frustrating, and disheartening, disappointing, especially when you're wanting so much to do something and it doesn't happen the way you expect it to. Over time, this gap between intention and action can lead to feelings of helplessness, isolation, and victimization. Not only being a victim of disease, but also being a victim of the medical system, which doesn't really seem to listen, which seems to force things on you that you're not quite ready for. It's easy for someone with Parkinson's to start feeling like they are just a passive observer in their own care, almost like a laboratory rat taking whatever people are dishing out. Many people wish that they could do more. They would like to do something to be actively involved in their own healing rather than just waiting around on medication or waiting around for physical therapy alone, which I've never been really fond of. When I was doing my consulting practice, I did not have clients with Parkinson's. I was pretty young back then. However, at my age, being no spring chicken, I am now encountering people with this problem, some of them my friends, which got me interested, since I am interested in helping. I'm dedicated to reducing suffering on earth. And I am kind of adventurous. And I think people with Parkinson's should take a look at their disease and become a little adventurous too. That would make it more interesting and get them more involved. Now, how can you actively participate in your own care? Well, there are plenty of chances these days with search engines and ChatGPT and other AI platforms. I mean, they can collect all the information, and you can even tell ChatGPT to teach it to you like you're a 3-year-old, and ChatGPT will be extremely happy to explain everything to you. All right. Also, you need to participate in the decision making. In other words, speak up. So many times doctors in this patriarchal field of medicine are too happy to tell you everything you should think, everything you should do without listening very much. They're used to being the authority. In this case, you really do have to speak up to get them to listen. Remember, you want to be cared for, and whether they know it or not, you have some important information to tell them to guide them in their care for you. You also need to be able to express your feelings and thoughts. Nobody is a mind reader. If someone thinks they're a good mind reader, it's basically they're projecting their ideas on you. You also have the ability to do what is becoming more and more mainstream in the treatment or the complementary or adjunctive treatment of Parkinson's. That's you are able to, on your own, use mindfulness, meditation, and guided or creative visualization. All right, that you do have that ability. Mindfulness and walking meditation have also shown some promising results. Mindfulness, which is the non-judgmental, almost third-person observation of physical states and activity, thoughts, emotions, and desires. Let me say that again. Mindfulness is a non-judgmental, almost third-person observation of your physical states and activities, of your thoughts, of your emotions, and of your desires. These things that seem to take us away from our lives, we tend to get wrapped up in them. You have a body, but you are not your body. You have thoughts, but you're not your thoughts. You have emotions, but you are not your emotions. And you have desires, but you're not your desires. In fact, you are pure consciousness, and you have the ability to observe those things. They belong to you, but they are not you. Mindfulness is practiced in many ways. It can be practiced, most often people know is the practice of observing your breath. There are lots of breathing meditations all over the internet and practiced all over the world. There are also body scans where you pay attention, you observe all these things going on in your body, or sensory awareness where you pay attention to all of the things going on around you. There's also mindful eating, even mindful sewing. Okay. There's also mindful walking meditation, which is kind of important. If you've been in meditation centers, you've often seen people do it. All right. It's the mindful attention to the steps you take, where your left foot is landing, where your right foot is landing, what's happening when your left foot is put down, what's happening when your right foot is put down. I always go left, pick up my foot, right, left, kick, move, and place. Then right foot, lift, kick, and place. Left, kick, place. Right, kick, place. Or left, forward, place. Right, forward, place. Left, forward, place. Right, forward, place. And I notice how my foot and leg moves and is placed on the ground. And the same thing for my right foot. Continuing to watch your footsteps, paying own conscious attention to your footsteps. That is what walking meditation is. Now, there's another aspect of this. The unconscious mind does not like so much control, doesn't like to have you constantly paying attention to something it considers to be so simple. After all, it's been doing it since you've been 2 or 3 years old, right? So it starts interjecting a lot of intrusive thoughts, and so you'll start paying attention, and some thought will come and take your attention away for a moment. You start thinking about it, right? But then you realize, oh, I'm not paying attention to my footsteps. So you tell that thought, just like you tell a nagging mother, I know, and then return without any drama back to observing your steps non-judgmentally. Okay. So you keep left, right, left, kick, place, right, kick, place, left, forward, place, right, forward, place. And anytime those intrusive thoughts come up, just say, I know, and come back to your steps. It's the most important thing in life, actually, is knowing when you're off your path and just getting back on it. A lot of people focus on getting off the path, and they get angry with themselves and they judge themselves. But actually, it's good news to realize that you are off your path. That's good news, because when you realize you're off, then you can get back on. A lot of people, take some people years to get back on the path, right? Now, walking meditation is just that. Walking along a path and paying attention to it. There's been research done with it in Thailand just recently in 2022. They performed a randomized control trial. It was home-based with about 33 people with Parkinson's disease. Now, walking meditation is easy to introduce to the people in Thailand because everyone there has watched the monks walking in the temples, doing their walking meditation in the temples. It's a common practice. Okay. So in that study, the participants practiced walking meditation 3 times a week for 12 weeks. Compared to the control group, those in the walking meditation group showed significant improvements in motor function as measured by a well-known Parkinson's disease scale that measures everything but about Parkinson's, including movements. They also maintained their functional mobility better than the control group. The control group declined on this test called the 5-time sit-to-stand test, while the walking meditation participants did not decline in functional mobility. In addition, fewer participants in the walking meditation group screened positive for anxiety on this scale called the Hospital Anxiety and Depression Scale. I think they only administered the anxiety part of that the anxiety subscale when they did that study. These findings there in Thailand suggest that mindfulness walking may help preserve gait function, reduce Parkinson's severity, and decrease anxiety. And that's quite wonderful news. A lot of meds can't do that. And this is all easy to do and well within your control. Before I even started up on this Parkinson's journey, I had already written a book, a walking meditation book called Mind Your Steps. I had put it on Kindle, though I may remove it because it seems to be getting lost there. I'm not a very good marketer. All right, but Mind Your Steps is a little bit different. All right, I went to a meditation retreat. I've been to quite a few. It was a 10-day retreat, and I was practicing the traditional I know method. You know, left kick place, right kick place, left kick place, right kick place. Intrusive thought. I know, and back to the steps. All right, that was fine, but at one point, those intrusive thoughts became very loud and they became very annoying, and I was just floored by that. I had studied cognitive therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy in my research as I was learning to help different people coming to see me. But for me, it never really made sense because I didn't know what was going on at my unconscious level, that internal dialogue that they were talking about, and all those dysfunctional thoughts were not easily accessed. I could not easily access them. I guess because they were going on too fast at the unconscious level, below my sense of awareness, below my level of awareness. All right. It was only when I was doing this walking meditation that they seemed to become so pronounced. And I kept thinking, well, why? And I thought, well, yes, Buddha said every movement begins with a thought. So one movement, left foot, another movement, right foot. So left foot must be one thought, one conscious thought, and right foot must be one conscious thought. I say conscious because I am consciously trying to observe them. All right. But what about all these thoughts that keep popping in my head? They're coming between the conscious thoughts. So if the footsteps are my conscious thoughts, then the intrusive thoughts all must be unconscious thoughts. The stuff running. You've heard of stream of consciousness. I call this stream of unconsciousness going on at the unconscious level, the stuff that can actually wreck your day and you don't even know it. All right. So I was happy because then, so finally, I know what these thoughts are. I can now apply my knowledge of cognitive therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and I can challenge these thoughts as I am doing my meditation. Of course, this assumes that you know how to do that. And so I incorporated that into my meditation, right? And ended up having some extremely joyful meditations by the end, right? Now, Parkinson's doesn't have to do that. Parkinson's patients, if they're going to be practicing walking meditation, can just go ahead and use the traditional, I know. They don't need any special knowledge to do that. Now, there's another kind of meditation, guided visualization, that offers another way for you to take an active role in your own treatments and your own therapy. Creative visualization is similar to hypnosis, where you allow yourself to relax even more until if going from concentrating on one thing on the outside and slowly moving to your inner world, to a quiet personal space where you can reconnect with your body, reduce stress, and gently restore a sense of calm control. But more importantly, I think, this opens you up to listening to your unconscious mind, whose main goal is always to protect and heal you if given the chance. And by relaxing in this way, you're giving your unconscious mind the chance to do that protection, to heal you to its best ability. Even a few minutes at a time can be beneficial. Now, creative visualization, that is, you relax into the state and you begin to imagine some things, don't require any physical strength or any physical effort like walking meditation. Instead, they draw upon your imagination and your memory. They also make use of guided imagery. Guided imagery is a therapeutic technique where a person uses their imagination, often led by a guide or a recording, or sometimes you can do it yourself. Even by drawing pictures, you can do it, to picture healing scenes, healing sensations, and movements. All right? This guided imagery is really the metaphorical use of images. Okay? The metaphorical use of images. What's easier to visualize when you're trying to work with your immunity? Right? You could try to imagine all of the immune things and responses going on in your body, the response of the cells with each other, them talking to each other, working with each other. But That's not easy to imagine because we don't live our lives in microscopes, right? And so it's hard to imagine, right? But it's easier to imagine a battle between some guys in white uniforms and some riffraff on the streets. Easier to do that than to imagine white blood cells and poor, weak cancer cells, right? It's also, you could imagine your circulatory system, your veins, capillaries, etc. Or wouldn't it be easier just to remember to imagine pipes, faucets, and valves, right? We've seen those, so it's easier to imagine. Your unconscious mind can relate to those metaphorical uses, these metaphors of immune responses, these metaphors of your circulatory system, just as easily, probably more easily than it can with you trying to do a medical visualize what's going on medically or physically with you. In fact, whole stories can also be therapeutic. I've done that before. For Parkinson's, it might involve imagining smooth, confident steps, picturing stiffness melting away like ice in the sun. Okay, that's quite metaphorical and pretty. These mental images help create a feeling of safety, movement, ease, even when the body is struggling. Metaphor helps these suggested experiences become more relatable, and they can even be humorous. For example, a guide might say something like, "Your legs are remembering how to dance," or "Your spine is standing tall like a tree, like an oak tree." Even a well-designed, full-on story can metaphorically depict a problem and a solution. That story is enough to get the change that you want. Early in my consulting practice, I met a young person who had a problem with perfection, and this perfectionist point of view was really giving him a lot of stress in his life. And I came up with a metaphor. I had him relax and imagine himself being young, loving to swim, wanting to become a professional swimming athlete. And when he was young, he got himself a lucky swimsuit because he accidentally, wearing this swimsuit, won a swimming contest. Well, not accidentally, he thought it was because of the lucky swimsuit. So he just kept wearing this swimsuit for years and years and years, doing everything to keep it from falling into tatters because it was his lucky swimsuit. But as the years passed, he was not competing as well as he used to with people. The swimsuit was becoming smaller and smaller because he was getting bigger and bigger. And he had this problem until one day he went swimming in this lake and he met this person in the lake who was swimming around there naked, who suggested that perhaps he should take off his swimsuit and see how he likes doing that. He took off his swimsuit and had a wonderful, wonderful time swimming more freely in the water, and his whole life changed. And it was a long, involved story, but in fact, that story changed that young man's life as he learned to take off the perfectionism he had started using when he was much younger. I do this kind of metaphorical story in my MP3 for Parkinson's called Utilizing Unconscious Resources for Parkinson's. Besides relaxing the listener, there's a lot of guided imagery, including one long story about a dance teacher who has a dance studio at the top of a high-rise building, apartment building. He became so popular that, in fact, the whole building learned how to dance. And after he retired, the people in the building continued to dance to the music that he played. And this was a metaphor about what the body can do when the teacher or the director, which is dopamine 1 and dopamine 2, kind of retire or diminish. Their body can still remember how to respond to those remembered stimulus. When used together in creative visualization, guided imagery and metaphor can help patients reawaken their physical and emotional memories, strengthen motor planning, and help them feel more hopeful, and more involved in their own recovery. That's what's good about that. Now, is it hocus pocus? Hardly. Creative visualization and guided imagery have been shown to improve a range of clinical outcomes across medical settings. Studies report benefits in pain management, surgical recovery, cancer treatment, and anxiety reduction. For instance, guided imagery has helped reduce post-operative pain and reduce opioid use. It has been found to shorten hospital stays and accelerate bone healing. In cancer care, it supports emotional well-being and immune function, and it reduces treatment-related fatigue and nausea, which we all know can be a big problem. These effects are thought to arise from stress reduction, lower cortisol levels, enhanced parasympathetic activity, and the activation of brain regions involved in attention and memory. They found this when they were doing research using functional MRI studies. Okay. However, what these studies do not focus on is the learning aspect of it. Under a relaxed state, with the proper guided imagery, suggestions, and metaphors, you can show the unconscious mind what you want it to do for you, and there's some learning going on, learning at the unconscious level that the scientists and stuff cannot study because it cannot be observed or measured, but this is what's going on in creative visualization. They kind of overlook the learning aspect, the unconscious learning aspect of that, and I'm sure that has much to do with the patient's progress as well. They just can't measure it. Meta-analyses support the use of guided meditation, guided imagery, okay, supports it as a safe, non-invasive, complementary, or adjunctive support activity that can be used along with conventional treatment. All right. So it has already been deemed safe, and non-invasive. Now, although research on guided imagery in Parkinson's disease is still developing, that means there's not a whole lot of studies, early studies show very promising results. Motor imagery has helped improve walking speed, step length, and coordination in people with Parkinson's. Another study found that mental practice improves movement, timing, and coordination. These techniques work by activating parts of the brain involved in planning movement, bypassing the damaged motor pathways. Guided imagery and similar techniques have also helped reduce anxiety and depression, which are common in people with Parkinson's. Mindful-based approaches that include visualization have improved mood, balance, and quality of life. While more large-scale studies are needed, current evidence supports that using guided imagery is a low-risk, empowering tool used very easily alongside physical therapy and medication. What of me? Who am I? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a nurse. I'm just a man with a strong desire to help people, who has very in-depth training and knowledge on mind-body techniques, who has a broad knowledge base due to my work in meditating and editing and writing up medical research. Am I a fool to try these things? I think it is I just dare to do them. I dare to play. My grandmother used to call it witchcraft. It's not witchcraft. It's just using the imagination. What is there to lose? The worst that can happen is it doesn't work. And what is there to gain? I believe a lot. Thank you very much for your attention today. I welcome you to come visit me at my website, www.zenx.com.tw. There you can find my meditations and creative visualizations on Parkinson's, on anxiety, pain control, cancer, grief, many different programs, right? I think you would enjoy taking a look at it. Thank you again for your attention. That's all for today.